So my name is Michal Plavsa, and I want to thank all of you for coming back for another day of higher education. I'm really pleased to see all of you here today, and I'm going to talk to you about evaluating health literacy and community health workers with an interdisciplinary approach. The past couple of days, we've talked a lot about multidisciplinary, but I made a distinction using interdisciplinary, where I worked with different disciplines, brought them all together, and if you use ethnography, you will understand you build your own languaculture. So it's really important, a really important distinction. I'm not going to talk too much about me today, other than the work that I did as I did this yesterday, but here's just a little bit of background information. On this next slide, if you remember, I had a word cloud yesterday, and I love word clouds. For those of you who teach or like to do things interactive, there's one called Menti. It's menti.com, and you can use it in your classroom, or if you're teaching online or having a Zoom session, and you can have people go in, you build your own, but you have your class go in and drop their own words in, and you can see the word cloud building as you go along. This is one that I did, and it's related to health literacy. And when I was teaching the session to community health worker trainees, I would ask them at the beginning and then at the end, what do you think health literacy is, and how does it relate to your work? So the World Health Organization describes health literacy as the ability of a person to find, use, and understand information in order to make informed decisions about their health. I think it is that and then some, because when we talk about health and health literacy, it's not always just about ourselves. It might be about our spouse or our children or our parents or our friends and loved ones. So it expands just beyond doing what we do for ourselves. So why study health literacy and community health workers? I really wanted to explore roles in addressing health literacy. As we talked about yesterday with community health workers, they're so vast and it can vary from organization to organization, even if you're in the same city, state, or country. I wanted to examine interventions and research, what had been done already and where I could bridge gaps. I wanted to evaluate a targeted intervention for community health worker trainees, enhance health literacy skills, and especially confidence in community health workers. And I wanted to emphasize the importance of interdisciplinary collaboration. So these were the participation requirements to do this training. They had to be currently enrolled in a community health worker training program, age 18 or older, have a high school diploma or equivalent, and I did have IRB approval. This is just my overview snapshot with the little camera. The things that I went through and made sure that participants had informed. I'm sorry to the people on Zoom, apparently we weren't sharing. So again, participants were provided with informed consent. I developed and delivered a health literacy intervention to this group. There were 6 cohorts between April and August of 2024. 5 sessions were delivered via Zoom, as we're doing today, and 1 session was in person. And I collected demographics, did a pre-assessment, did the learning intervention, and then a post-assessment. And I intentionally measured learning and perceived confidence in health literacy. Now, we all need a little bit of theory when we do research, right? Everybody needs a little bit of theory. For this was really action-based learning, and we talked about perception, and community health worker trainees reflected on past experiences and their current experiences and how they could use this information in the future. So I felt that this worked really well with constructivist theory. So these are the research questions that I listed. Does a structured health literacy education intervention improve knowledge of health literacy concepts and information for community health worker training program participants? Does a health literacy education intervention in a community health worker training program improve trainees' confidence in their own health literacy levels? And what variables contribute to health literacy confidence levels in community health worker trainees? And these are the results. And for those of you who love charts, I have quite a few of them here. These are the ones, this is just for demographics. And there were, although I started with a much larger number, as you know, when you're doing research, sometimes everybody just is not able or does not want to complete every part of the research. So I ended up with 33 participants. 18 of them had not had any prior health literacy education, and 15 of them did. And I specifically wanted to point that out because later when I show t-tests and other information, this impacts their confidence. So question 1 results, does a structured health literacy education intervention improve knowledge of health literacy concepts and information in community health worker training programs? And here my paired sample t-test indicates a higher mean value on the post-assessment correct score, which was 7.09, from the mean on the pre-assessment correct score, 4.82, at a p-value of less than 0.001. And I should also mention that I use SPSS to run the statistics. Question 2. Does a health literacy education intervention in a community health worker training program improve trainees' confidence in health literacy? And again, the paired t-test shows a p-value of 0.021, which indicates that the difference in means between pre and post-assessment confidence in health literacy did not happen by chance, and that the health literacy education intervention successfully improved trainees' confidence. While it does not meet the 0.001 standard that we all aim for, which is highly significant, it is statistically significant at 0.05. So again, using charts and a little bit of color here, I wanted to note that those who did not have prior health literacy education, 13 participants reported an increased level of confidence in health literacy, with 8 increasing by 1 level. The gray, the soft gray at the bottom is pre-intervention, and the green you see at the top is post-intervention. So 8 increased by 1 level and 5 increased by 2 levels. There were 5 individuals who reported no change. And of the 15 participants with prior health literacy education, 6 reported an increase in confidence by 1 level, and 9 reported no change, indicating that those who did not have prior health literacy showed more of an increase in their confidence level than those who had prior health literacy education. Here's another lovely chart for those of you who like everything all organized. In a regression table analysis using the dependent variable confidence increase from pre to post assessment, participant age and prior health literacy education were statistically significant at the 0.05 level and 0.01 confidence levels, respectively. And finally, number 3, using an R-squared model summary, R-squared suggests that 29.9% of the change in confidence levels in health literacy reported between pre and post assessment are explained by the predictors of age, highest level of education, and prior health literacy education. These are my discussion points. So relating current learning to previous experiences was common throughout each training cohort. Remember, there were 6 of them, 5 were delivered via Zoom, 1 was in person. Participants discussed what they learned from the health literacy intervention and how they could implement skills acquired in the immediate future. And this goes back to my whole constructivist theory. They really put a lot of thought into what they experienced previously, how what they had learned could impact and improve their communications with patients and clients moving forward. And as I mentioned before, of those who did not have prior health literacy education, 13 participants reported an increased level of confidence in health literacy, with 8 increasing by 1 level and 5 increasing by 2. This would suggest that the intervention benefited those who did not have any prior health literacy knowledge, which fulfills the goal of bridging gaps in confidence and in knowledge. An important point that I want to bring up is that there may have been overconfidence bias, which occurs when participants overestimate their knowledge or skills. This possibility exists because those participants had not experienced any prior learning related to health literacy and their confidence was lower. But after receiving the education, they reported higher levels and they were really pumped. They were really excited about what they had learned and were excited to take this information and go forward. So these were my limitations. There was a small population of the community health worker trainees that we talked about. There were only 33 in this specific intervention. I did this at Ohio University with a specific group of trainees that were just related to this university, even though we have 14 training facilities or approved programs rather in the state of Ohio. They had limited exposure, only 2 hours, which I only had so much time to give them all of this information. And so because I was limited on time, I really had to select with care topics to provide basic understanding. And one of the key points that really stood out to them was having information at a 7th grade reading level, as that is the basic reading level in the United States. So we wanted to keep it, I believe Craig talked about keeping it simple. We really wanted to make sure that health information is presented in a very simplified but direct manner. And further research is needed to examine social and economic impact of providing health literacy training to community health workers by tracking and analyzing longitudinal data. I would love to see what it is as they were going through the training and then maybe measure it again after they have been in the field for 6 months, and then perhaps even measure it a year or so later. Though limitations on participants exist, it allows for all voices to be heard with a smaller sample size. This ensures that learning is taking place and it is relevant to the training and the work that community health workers do. So these were the conclusions to the study. This analysis suggests that the intervention increased both knowledge and confidence in health literacy levels of community health worker trainees. And it underscores the value of an educational intervention tailored to this audience. We talked, I believe it was someone later yesterday afternoon, we had talked about that sometimes we spend so much time trying to fix something when perhaps being educated or taking an ounce of prevention could have prevented the problem to begin with. Maybe not in all cases, but it's important to educate others so that they can continue to pass it on. Additionally, trainees are better prepared to serve their communities when they enter their workforce. Yesterday, I talked a little bit about community health workers and the programs that I evaluated. This is a pathway. This might not be their end goal. Maybe it is. Maybe this is what they want to do. However, maybe they'll take a next step and perhaps get an associate's degree. Perhaps then maybe they'll take the next step and become a social worker, or perhaps an LPN, or perhaps an RN, or perhaps even go forward. And continued investments in training, continuing education, and increasing levels of health literacy are very important strategies for improving overall health outcomes in communities. And these are my references. Thank you all for being here today.